Good morning, good morning, good morning. So today we are going to be reacting to the animated history of Finland. It's been a few days since we've done one of these. I absolutely love these animations just because they remind me of the play school figures when I was a kid. And I like learning history. I think it's important. So with that being said, let's get started. Before actually we get started, if you like the content, please like, share, subscribe. Let your buddies know. It helps me out. I'm trying to figure this whole internet thing out. Let's go.
Is sponsored by the Great Courses Plus. Stick around to see how you can support the channel and learn more online. So you guys have heard of Finland, right? The Arctic wonderland in northern Europe bordering Russia and Sweden. And Norway too, I guess. Sami, Vikings, the so-called White Death, Grand Duchies, which are like regular duchies, just better. Swedes, Soviets, and in between it all,
about the White Death.
Here just minding their own business. Whatever you've heard of the Nordic nation, its story goes back pretty far.
I'm gonna get one of these little figures made up for my desk.
Finland is located right in the north of Europe, partly within the Arctic Circle. Most foreigners tend to mistakenly label the Finns as Scandinavian, which is only partly true since only the very top of the country is actually in Scandinavia. It would be...
Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even know that this is where the country was. Like, I know Finland is a country, but I had never done any kind of study to know where it was in the world. I knew it was somewhere in Europe, so that's first.
Be more correct to use the term Nordic or Northern European, which encompasses the more broad culture.
Also, didn't know that Nordic or Northern European was or why they call them that. So that's gonna be good for me to learn.
Cultural similarities they have with their neighbors. The region was inhabited mostly on the coast by a people that outsiders called the Feni. The Finns called their land Suomi, which means land of lakes, which, if you've ever been to Finland, is pretty accurate. The Finns and the Sami are ethnically Uralic and speak languages in the Finno-Ugric family, meaning they are distinct from Caucasians. But then again, we don't really know, and theories on the subject are about as common as vodka. Things were pretty peachy for the Finns until they encountered a little-known Germanic group from southern Scandinavia, the Vikings. The Vikings raided along the Finnish and Baltic shores for many centuries, beginning the process of cultural influence that the Norse would have on Finland for almost its entire history. Norse people also arrived in Finland as traders and settlers, bringing with them culture, food, customs, and traditions. The Finns were never really united, but rather a group of small villages and farms with similar language and ancestry, so resistance was light at best. Norse settlement in Finland increased dramatically from the 9th to 12th centuries, mostly from modern-day Sweden and Denmark, which would begin the long-standing claim of the Scandinavian powers on the Finnish lands. The Scandinavian powers fought for control over much of the Proto-Finnic lands, including parts of Estonia. To make things worse, even the Russians from Novgorod got involved from time to time. But before anyone knew what was going on, the medieval ages rolled around, and crusading was the hot new fashion. The Northern Crusades between 1150 and 1293 saw the Swedes conquer vast amounts of Finnic land, laying the foundation of the Swedish Empire. In addition to land and dominance, the expanding kingdom had a lot of symbolic significance for the Swedes, who had been struggling for many years against the Danes, their main rivals, who had a bit of a head start on the whole empire-building business. The Swedes brought with them the Swedish language and also lots of war. King Magnus Eriksson wasn't a fan of the Russians, and Finland often...
Okay, so I've heard of Eriksson, but I didn't know of his contributions, so I'm interested to hear how he did that.
Got caught up in the crossfire of the two nations' disputes. Not long after, Finland became part of the most powerful northern personal union you've never heard of, the Union of Kalmar, to try to counter the monopoly on...
He's right, never heard of Kalmar Union, so I'm interested to see how long that lasted.
Trade from another union you've never heard of, the Hanseatic League.
Okay, so the Hanseatic League's down here.
Princess Margaret of Denmark
Russia.
had her eyes set on the crowns of Sweden and Norway. And don't get us wrong, the royal families on these three countries were pretty intertwined by this point, and they mostly spoke the same language, so uniting them wasn't exactly the most far-fetched idea. She married the King of Sweden and succeeded as regent for her adopted son Eric, who became the King of Norway, Sweden, and Denmark.
Okay, so now this is when it all gets united. It's smart to do, especially if you guys already all speak the same language, pretty much.
Who, by the way, just happened to be a duke from Poland. The union was signed in 1397 in the Swedish city of Kalmar, which gave the new country its name. Bonus points for creativity. The union was plagued by internal struggles and fighting with the Danes.
Of course, because this guy's always a thief. You know what I mean? Love it.
And Russians, much of the time in the Finnish mainland. The Livonian Wars of the 1500s was a turbulent time for Finland. 4 major powers warred for control over more land, resulting in a large territorial expansion into northern Finland. The war also had internal struggles, with Sigismund Vasa briefly being king of both Poland and Sweden until being deposed by his nephew King Charles. The conflicts were particularly harsh on the people of Finland, who revolted against the Swedish crown during the Finnish Club War. This ended well for no one.
Club War. Ooh, that sounds terrible.
17th century Finland found itself part of a dominant military power, and many Finns served in the Swedish army. The 1600s were pretty big in a religious war, and Sweden, devout Lutherans since 1527, couldn't help but get involved. Protestants were like the hipsters of Europe at this point, which...
That's funny, bro. He just threw some glasses on the little outfit, and now he's a hipster. Love the little slick back with the fade too, by the way.
This is all fine and dandy, unless those
and he gave him a craft beer. That's hilarious.
Happened to control a large modernized army. The 30 Years' War and the Northern Wars had many Finns such as the Hakapolita die for the Swedish crown symbolically to protect their faith. But if they did happen to gain some land in the process, well, that was just an added benefit. Unusually cold temperatures and famine meant the Finns weren't ready for the next conflict the Swedes would bring them to, the Great Northern War. Sweden had gone to war with literally all of its close neighbors, and the Finnish countryside was ravaged by freezing temperatures and the Russian army, killing nearly half of Finland's population. If you'd like to learn more about the Great...
That's gotta be tough, right? Because, I mean, this is you, and you're surrounded by some big, powerful countries, and then these guys who got a massive landmass, so... Interesting.
Northern War, why not head over to the Great Courses Plus? The Great Courses Plus is an on-demand video service with thousands of lectures and courses from all around the world. This includes Ivy League professors, experts from National Geographic, and many, many more. For whatever interests you, math, science, literature, and of course, history. There's something for everyone. Lecture 22 in the decisive battles of world history, entitled 1709 Pultava, Sweden's Fall, Russia's Rise, is a fun and easy way to learn about the Great Northern War which devastated Finland. Viewers who wish to support the Sweeney channel are offered a free trial, which they can access by heading to the Great Courses Plus/Sweeney, or by clicking the link below to begin their online learning adventure.
Oh, go check out the Great Courses Plus.
The channel, and to the Great Courses Plus for their support. Finland was mostly at peace after that, and may have been a disputed kingdom for a while. It's complicated. The Finns more earnestly began to struggle for independence during the period of Enlightenment. When the Napoleonic Wars rolled around, Sweden, just like all the cool kids, went to war with France, and somewhere in the middle of it, Russia annexed Finland. How this happened is long and complicated, and we'll elaborate more when we do episodes on Sweden and Denmark. But long story short, the Russians wanted to push their border as far west from St. Petersburg as possible, and gave the Finns autonomy under the Grand Duchy of Finland to do it.
Okay, so now Finland's a part of Russia again.
The duchy remained peaceful and didn't serve under the Russian serfdom. By the time the 20th century dawned, the Finns were thoroughly infected by the new European fever. Now,
okay, so Spanish flu caused a lot of issues. Around the whole world. So I'm interested to see how it affected these guys as well, because stuff messed up everything.
In 1917, during the First World War, Finland gained independence, but just like pretty much all of its European neighbors at the time, it became split on ideological divides, in this case, conservatives and socialists.
Same problems we have now.
And ideological divides very rarely didn't lead to civil war in those days. The Finnish Civil War ensued and the capitalists won, but that wouldn't be the end of socialism or other ideologies in Finland. The Second World War saw a major conflict in Finland. 2 months after the fall of Warsaw, the Soviet army invaded Finland. This proxy conflict is labeled the Winter War since most of the battles were fought in thick winter snow, making famous the Finnish ski troops, Molotov cocktails, and Simo Haya, the White Death.
Ah, I didn't know that's
Haya
where
was
that
a
came
Finnish
from.
marksman
That's
who had the
interesting.
highest confirmed kills more than any other sniper in history in a major war. The Soviets named him the White Death, since he blended into the snow and the men feared him to the point of paranoia. The Finns were loosely allied with Nazi Germany during their attacks on Russia, but
Not a good
only
look.
lasted until 1944 when the Finns went to war with Germany to expel them from the northern Lapland.
A little better look.
Harsh war reparations were imposed on Finland in the post-war period by the USSR. However, this had a modernizing effect on the nation. They were largely optimistic after the war, having successfully defended their nation. Nationalism was high, and they remained free from absorption into the USSR, rather remaining a close trade ally, while strengthening its ties to Scandinavia as well. They were completely neutral during the Cold War and cooperated mostly with both sides. In 1952,
Okay, so
they
these
entered
guys
into
didn't
the
want beef
Nordic
with
Union,
nobody.
with abrogations of passports, immigration, social welfare, and trade tariffs. Finland also shaped herself into the modern socialist welfare state it is today, with a government not unlike Sweden or Denmark. They joined the European Union in 1995 with Sweden and Austria, and 4 years later adopted the euro as their currency.
Okay.
The facilitation in trade and immigration boosted the economy and tourism. The economy is based on manufacturing, service delivery, and resource exports, and is highly ranked in information technology. Outsiders have frequently described Finland as a socialist utopia, which, while probably a little romanticized, they are currently ranked the 5th happiest country in the world. And who doesn't love happy reindeer?
Yeah, that kind of, that's kind of nice to see that these people are just genuinely happy, especially knowing kind of like all the beef that happened and everything that comes around with them being surrounded by the Vikings, which were kind of like a tribe that was, or a people who was known for pillaging, and then the Russians who were pushing it in the USSR, but then they supported the Nazis, I guess, and then they fought against the Nazis, which is a better look. So it's nice to see that they're just happy now after all of that.
Well, we hope you enjoyed the Finland episode.
So
If you want the chance to vote for the next country we cover,
back here to the full cam. So I didn't know anything about Finland, and so it's kind of nice that to learn a little bit about Finland and what's going on over there, and the history of what made their nation. With that being said, I'm going to end the video. I'll probably do a few more of these, maybe just change it up a little bit, and we'll go back to doing some other type of reviews as well. But that being said, I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Again, if you like the content, please like, share, and subscribe.